Hello, it's me again. Oh no, you're saying, oh no, not again. Part 6. I'm Ray, G4NSJ. Part 6. What is it? The continuing story of Peyton Place. The continuing story of the HRO. Starring Ray. Getting completely confused and mixed up with it all. No, seriously, I'm enjoying every minute of this. It's brilliant. I'm really getting into it. I've bought valves, I've done this, I've done that. Right, where to start? Okay, this is Radio Guernsey. Very good signal. Don't know what power they run. Also, right, hear that? Now that's weak, isn't it? A lot of noise.
Listening to non-stop nostalgia, retro music for the young heart on your local hospital radio station.
Hear that? Local hospital radio station. Chichester Hospital. Chichester. I've had a look. Was it 17 miles away from me? And I'm picking them up on 1431 kilohertz. They use what's known as an LPAM, low power AM station, a license from Ofcom. Maximum allowed wattage, okay, maximum allowed 1 watt. That's not bad. I don't know what sort of aerial they've got, but it certainly works well. So this is sensitive. That's the point I'm trying to make. This is very sensitive. I used my nano VNA to work out exactly what frequency is where, because on this particular coil pack there's no graph, that's missing. This coil pack should cover, this is the one I've been given recently, should cover 900 kilohertz to 2.05 megs, okay, 2050 kilohertz. So 900, 0.9 megs to 2.05 megs. It actually covers 830 to 1.9. The whole lot has shifted. Why has it gone from 900 kcs, shifted down, it starts now at 830. Instead of going up in frequency to 2.05, only goes up to 1.9. I'll tell you why. Look, if I can get it out. You see these little bits here. Can you see that on the screen? You see that little bit there and that little bit there? I have been told, with good authority, get that back, the HRO, they made these sets for the US Navy, and the US Navy wanted to cover 500, as it was known, 500 kcs, 500 kilohertz, which was a marine frequency between long wave and medium wave AM, between the two bands, 500, and it was Morse code only, and it was worldwide, international. Now the Navy said we want to cover that frequency. I think they wanted 200 to 550 or whatever. So what HRO did, instead of 456 kilohertz IF, they went to 175. So I won't go into the details of that, but to get the thing to work on 500 kilohertz, you know, they had to change the IF. This coil pack, I think, is to work on a different IF frequency. So it will shift the whole area that this covers, you know, the whole range of frequencies that it covers. So it's now 830 to 1.9, 830 kilohertz to 1.9 megs instead of 900 to 2.05 megs. So that's one thing I wanted to tell you. I mean, it doesn't matter. I've just written a new coverage on the side of the thing. It doesn't matter, but it's just a point of interest. Just a quick update on that. What I've done now is I've altered the oscillator on this coil pack. I'm now covering 840 kilohertz to 2020, 2.02 megs. I wanted to get in top band, the 160 meter amateur band, which I've now done. So it goes up to 2.02 megs. It's right at the end of its travel, the oscillator trimmer. That's it, you can't go any further because it's the wrong IF for this coil pack. I just wanted to mention that. Also, when these were sold, they were sold with various sets of coil packs, and they were aligned. The coil pack, each coil pack was aligned on its receiver So you're selling this receiver with that coil pack, and they aligned it to that. So I'm going to align all mine. What I've done is use the Nano VNA. I thought the IF stages were pretty well spot on. If you've got one of these, if you've got an accurate signal generator, brilliant, because you want 456 kilohertz. If you haven't, which I haven't, the Nano VNA is accurate enough. When you turn it on, type in stimulus, start 456 kilohertz, stop 456 kilohertz, and it'll put a tone out of that one. So what I did out of the Nano VNA, you meant to stick this in the grid of the first IF amp, aren't you, or something? I didn't. I just put the wire near the mixer, then you get a reading on the S meter. I mean, that's good enough, isn't it? It's not a tone, it's a carrier. Sorry, I said tone, didn't I? Then you can tune up the IF stages using the S meter, which is what I've done, and it was spot on actually. Funnily enough, it was spot on 456 kilohertz. So that's a good way to set that up. I've yet to look into the crystal. There's a 4BA, a 4BA adjuster there. I haven't yet looked into that to set up the crystal frequency properly. I shall look into that later. Also, what I've done, I've made loads of notes. I've got to write all this out properly. With the Nano VNA as a signal generator, I've gone from one end of the band to the other. So 60 on the dial is 900 kilohertz. 70 on the dial is 920 kilohertz. So I'm going to list this out properly because there's no graph. Also, it'll be easier when I'm on, say, 110 here. I can look down my list and it says 990. There we are. So I'm going to print all this out properly, and I'll do that for each coil pack because the graph is it's difficult to follow. So that way I can just look down my list and see the dial will correspond exactly to whatever frequency on the list. What those little things are for each side, apparently on a ship, the ship's rolling about, that was to keep the coil pack in place. I can't see that falling out, to be honest. Just because the ship rolls, I don't think this would fall out. But apparently it was locked in either side, and that's what those two little bits are for. Sounds feasible to me, doesn't it? That's a reasonable explanation, I reckon. What do you think? Another thing, you see that mess? Three-way rotary switch. Absolute mess. That was, you could just see, that was there. What it seemed to do, I had to trace all the wires to see what was going on. What it appeared to do was, in one position the AGC is off, in another position the AGC was on with the S meter off, the AGC on with the S meter off. I don't know. I traced it all out. I made a load of notes where there's a blue wire, green wire, black wire, white wire. I had to trace them all. So I took that mess out. I put that in the bin, actually. The bin's gone. So I've now got there an AGC on-off switch. That's all that does. I know it's not meant to be there. It's meant to be there. Can you see that? Just about. The AGC on-off should be here. Now that switch there, that's another weird setup. What that does, turns the BFO on, the CW oscillator as they call it, which it does. I thought it was meant to turn the AGC off when you turn the oscillator on. I've yet to trace the wiring to that one. That all looks original. I mean, that obviously isn't original. That's original. I've now got to work out what it does. It's a double pole, double throw. So one side turns the oscillator on and off. That's simple. The other side goes to that one or to that one, if you see what I mean. I've got to work out what that's doing. The B36 double triode, put this round here again, which is the audio output valve. One half of the one triode is audio output. The other triode, I've now worked out, seems to be to do with the S meter. Again, I'm having to trace wires everywhere to see and draw out circuit diagrams and stuff like that, so I can work out what's what. Aeroplane. Sorry about all the noise, I've got the window open, it's a hot day. Let's let the aeroplane go over first. Just briefly, that other triode, the control grid goes to the AGC rail, and the anode is connected. I haven't followed it fully yet, but the anode is connected to the S meter, and there's some kind of bridge there which I've got to work out. The S meter is reading, but not very much, only just moves off the stop. So that S meter zeroing pot doesn't really work properly. Oh, that was something else. I'm now looking into the mixer, which is a pentagrid, a heptode. There we are, 5 grids. I actually bought a new one because I had some weird oscillations going on, if you remember. I bought a new one and it hasn't made any difference. So it wasn't a waste of money. It seemed better, this one, but it wasn't. But it didn't solve the oscillations problem. I've still got to look into that. All the circuit diagrams I've ever seen of any HRO doesn't use a pentagrid. What is it? A 6E6 and something else. They use pentodes. This ordinary pentode. A chap in America sent me an article, an RSGB bulletin article from 1937, I think it was. If you go to the website G4NSJ.co.uk, go there and go to the main menu, go down to communications receivers, you'll find this one, go to that page, and there's a link to the article, the 1937 RSGB article. And what it does, it uses a B7G valve instead of the old UX6 base. Alright, so they've had to fit an aluminium plate or something. I'm not doing all that. This is all octal now anyway, I'm leaving it as octal. But what they did, they took out the, I think it was a 6C6, which is a UX6 base, and they've put in a B7G valve. What was it? EB? I can't remember what it is. And that B7G valve, I did have it written down. It's a heptode. It's a pentagrid, little B7G pentagrid. I'm sure I've written it down somewhere. No, you'll have to look at the article. I don't know where it is. And it's quite interesting. That is the only mention anywhere over all the decades of the HRO receiver. It's the only mention of a mixer being the heptode, the pentagrid. So that's what mine has got. So was this particular valve put in because of that RSGB article, I wonder? Did someone think that's a good idea? There are reasons. I don't want to go into all that, but basically a change of signal grid voltage from the aerial, the signal grid voltage, a change in that doesn't change the cathode current very much. So it stops all sorts of things. Look at the article. When I say the signal grid voltage from the aerial, it's not, is it? There are 2 RF amps. It's from the second RF amp into the heptode, isn't it? So that is all working properly, and I'm pleased with that. I like the idea of the pentode, the pentode. I like the idea of the pentagrid, as they call it, pentagrid. It's a heptode, isn't it? It's quite interesting. I do like the idea of the separate oscillator valve. That's all that valve does. Domestic vintage valve radios from the 40s, the old domestic, big old wooden or Baker-like cabinets, they use one valve, which is the mixer and oscillator. They've got the oscillator bit as a triode. It's normally electron coupled to the other half of the valve, and it's all in one. I don't like that. I like the separate oscillator, and in a communications receiver you want things like that, right? So separate oscillator, separate mixer, separate everything. But I've still got these weird oscillators. Here's a little clip from the last video. Have a look and you can see what I mean. I just want to show you this. This is LBC on 1152. Okay, if I tune here, you hear that cut off. I'm going down in frequency. There's 1152, cuts off, and it's all become microphonic. If I go a bit further, it's working again, but look, something very strange with the mixer valve there. several of you suggested putting a can over it. I did put a can over it, well grounded, didn't make any difference. That's why I bought the new valve, because it only happens on this one coil pack, which is the odd one, the different IF coil pack, so there could be something going on there. Something else to look into, I'll have to spend tens of hours on. So yeah, I bought the new valve, so I know the valve's okay. I've checked underneath, I've replaced the relevant capacitors, so there's nothing funny going on there, and it is only on this coil pack, so that's odd. Anyway, thank you for all your suggestions, great to hear from you. Thanks for all the help I've had. I've got a temporary RF gain control here, there's a proper one coming from America, there's what else, there's all sorts coming from all over the place. So that's brilliant. Just going back to this where it cuts off in that video, it's as if the oscillator is stopping. Then as you tune a bit lower, the oscillator starts again. It's not, the oscillator is running all the time. I put the frequency counter on it. The oscillator is still running when this cuts off. So it's something strange going on, I don't know what. It's just one little section of the medium wave band. I shall look into that at some stage. I'm not too worried at the moment. The next job will be, well, there's the S meter to sort out still, the noise limiter. The pot is there. I've put a new double diode in there. At the moment it's bypassed. As I said in the last video, someone had bypassed it. So I shall be unbypassing it, and it won't work. I shall then find the fault. Well, that's the idea anyway. I've rewritten some of the frequency now. There's all the dial settings and the frequencies, and then I've written stations by each one. Radio Guernsey, Sunrise, Radio Jersey, Radio Wales, yeah, 882 kilohertz. That comes through very well. I went to Ambley the other day. I often go there, Ambley Museum, and have a look at this. They've got an HRO there, you see that? Now that's the early one with the glass valves and the valve cans and the control grids taken out to the top cap. That's quite interesting. That I've been to Ambley hundreds of times. I've never actually seen that one. Whether they've recently added it or not, I don't know. But I just thought I'd show you that. Some of my banter about this, some of the explanations, you might think you don't need to go into detail like that. You know, we know what you're talking about. The thing is about my videos, all my videos, they are aimed at everyone that's interested, but also specifically newcomers to the hobby. You know, I don't want to mumble stuff about frequency change and mixer and that and not really explain what I'm talking about, because people will be thinking, well, what's that mean? What's a frequency change and what's a mixer? Obviously I'm not going to go into the whole superhet idea, I'm not going to go through all that, but you know, some of the explanations you might think, oh, what's he on about that for? You know, we know that. Not everyone knows that. We all had to start somewhere. That's what I always think. I remember in my shed when I was 14 years old, I didn't really know what was going on. I listened to the old boys on 80 meters having a chat, and that's where I learned a lot of stuff. They talking about ATUs and aerials and balanced feeders and dipoles and all this stuff, and it was great. I used to take notes. So we've all got to start somewhere. Okay, I think I'll end it there. There's not much else to say at the moment. No doubt no doubt there'll be a part 7, possibly a part 8, and now, as I said, never-ending story, continuing story of Peyton Place. Right, thanks for watching. Hope it didn't bore you too much. I shall see you next time. Bye bye for now.